Stream channel. There we go. There we go. All right. I'm just confirming that this has gone live. Let's see. Hello, everybody. This is Chris, normally the host of Comic Tropes. Welcome to my second channel. I call it Pros and Cons. And some kind of big news for me and the channel. I have gone part-time at my day job as of this week so that I can devote more time to YouTube. I love my channel. I really want to see it grow. And the only way to do that is to be able to commit some more time to it. So I'm taking what I consider a pretty big step. My sister's in the chat. Hello, Gein. And hello to some other people there. Looks like I see Iron Shell and Detroit. Okay, yeah, I'm reading that right. Nice to see people in here. I appreciate it. What am I going to do? I'm going to, for one thing, aim to create at least weekly videos on comic tropes. And as a second thing, I would like to do weekly live streams, but I'm going to be doing it on this second channel. Reason for that, YouTube sort of penalizes you algorithm-wise if you are putting out sort of like weekly videos that get a certain number of overall views, and then every once in a while you do a live stream that gets like significantly less. So, yeah, that's why I've sort of separated these out because if you get significantly less, then YouTube stops sharing your content to new people. Kind of hurts the channel. Anyway, looks like the stream health is good. And what I'm going to do here for my show, first, I'm going to go over the comics that I've read this week. If there's any real news to talk about, we're going to talk about some sort of comic book related news together. And then I'm going to always either draw or ink or color something, or maybe all three. So, yeah, a little bit of everything. I'm just going to make sure that I am promoting the fact that this stream is, live. That's important. And then I'm going to talk about some of the comics that I've read this week, which is actually a really thick stack this particular week. So that's sort of like something I'd love to talk about. And there's still people coming in, so I don't feel like I'm in a huge rush to get that started. But we'll get going. I'm going to talk about some of the news of the week regarding comics. I'm going to talk about what I've read comic book-wise. I'm going to draw, and while I draw, I can take your questions. So share, copy the link, and go from there. I would say the biggest news in comics is primarily movie related. Comic book related wise, you may have seen some of this getting shared in mainstream media. Superman came out as bisexual. However, that headline is a little misleading. There are two Supermans. There's Clark Kent, the Superman we all grew up with, and he and Lois now have a son, and it's his son who is bisexual. So that's the big news. Kind of non-news when you know that it's a second new character that's just also using the name Superman, which is normal. There's always been like multiple Iron Mans and Spider-Mans and Batmans and Flashes. It's something that comic book superheroes do. So that's just something they've always done and always will do. And then the other news is just like there was a bunch of trailers released over the weekend at DC's annual Fandom event. Flash, The Batman, little teases for things also like Black Adam, Shazam. For the most part, I guess it looks kind of interesting. None of it like super excited me, but we'll see. I've got a sense that the new Batman movie, obviously the Riddler is in it, but I don't think that he's necessarily the main antagonist so much as an obstacle, an important obstacle. He's obviously talking somehow about corruption, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be the same corruption we've seen before with, like, the police department in Gotham City or anything. I think it's going to be referring to a more recent comic book thing from Batman, the Court of Owls, which is a society, a high society, a secret society of really wealthy people that sort of secretly run Gotham. I think that he's going to be uncovering that. So that's what I think that the Batman movie will be about. The Flash movie obviously seems to deal with multiverse stuff. Boy, DC could have gotten there first. Flashpoint is a comic that's been out for a long time, but Marvel beat them with things like Loki and What If, so we'll see. Anyway, let's quickly go through some of the comics that I read. I want to give some recommendations or just some thoughts, real quick overviews of what I've read this week. Then we'll get into a live stream where I'm drawing. And thank you, by the way. I'm seeing some more people show up. I'm grateful. I know this is sort of my second channel. It's going to take a little while to build up the audience here. Not many people are expecting this. First book I have here, crime book. I love crime comics. This is A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance by Rick Remender and artist Andre Lima Araujo. I may be mispronouncing that. Colorist Chris O'Halloran, letterer Russ Wooten. Gorgeous artworks, nicely detailed, nice thin lines, kind of reminiscent of certain Franco-Belgian comics, bande dessinées. Reminds me a tiny bit of people like Mobius. Anyway, it seems to be a fairly ordinary guy having a terrible day, and ultimately he comes across a crime scene that he's clearly about to get blamed for. Great artwork, interesting premise, sort of a revenge story. Following on crime comics, I discovered this one this week. I'd been hearing good things. The Good Asian, also through Image Comics, by writer Pisha Shote and artist Tefeng Ki. I'm probably doing a bad name on your names. I'm sorry, folks. Lee Loffridge on colors, one of the best in the business. Jeff Powell doing letters. This is set in so it starts here in 1936, jumps forward a little after that, takes place basically in sort of World War II era, and follows a guy, Edison Hark, who is a police officer detective from Honolulu, Hawaii, where Chinese and other Asian people could do that before they could in mainland America. Amazing crime story. He's super smart, but he's also, kind of a bastard. He's kind of a jerk. Real hard-boiled, classic crime stuff. And he's such an underdog because, he's trying to solve a crime that his white adoptive family is involved in San Francisco, where, the people in Chinatown don't believe that he's a cop, and the other cops don't trust him because he's Chinese. There's a lot of real-life history baked into this because, America had a lot of blockades allowing Chinese people to become immigrants at this point in time. So they were definitely treated like second-class citizens. Amazing. I love crime comics. This one has really, really hooked me. If you like stuff like Criminal by Ed Brubaker, you'd probably like The Good Asian. Let me keep moving because I've got a lot of stuff to get through. This is a nonfiction book. It's also the scariest book I've read this year. Perfect for spooky season, right? It's called Did You Hear What Eddie Gein Did? And of course it is a nonfiction account of serial killer Eddie Gein by true crime writer Harold Schechter and the Goon creator, great artist and writer in his own right, Eric Powell. Why do I say this is scary? Because it's just so... It's horrific stuff that Ed Gein did, and it's real. That's scary to me. And he just fit in and wasn't suspected by people for so long. Just a really hard to comprehend mind. Really, really hard to comprehend. This goes through his childhood. He had a very strange relationship with his mother. When you read this, you will see just how much the movie Psycho borrowed from Ed Gein's story. A lot. A lot of people know of Ed Gein as an inspiration for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but he was also an inspiration for Psycho. He knitted human skin into clothes, like you'd see in Silence of the Lambs. So this guy is a very influential serial killer in pop culture. This book looks gorgeous and was so scary. I flew through it, and I definitely was like creeped out to go to bed at the end of the day, because I'm like, is there anybody I know that could be like an Ed Gein? I don't think so. Wow. Okay, this next one is 100% different. This was a sort of comedy book, manga called The Way of the House Husband. It's all short stories about this guy who used to be part of organized crime, but he met a lady, married her, she works, and he stays at home, and he takes it very seriously, like, you know, his work, getting the groceries, making sure that her lunch is ready on time, you know, talking to salesmen about knives and, like, you know, how good are they. He's a complete badass, but he's also completely domesticated. It's a weird comic. It is pretty funny. The best thing about it is really strong artwork. Like, really, really good. Not sketchy or anything. Like, you know, there's a lot of action. And I'm going to try to use a few of these techniques tonight with my drawing. Like this is something Japanese manga does for, like, motion. Do you see how they've got, like, all these, like, sort of parallel lines instead of, like, along his hand or something to sort of imply motion? I'm going to be using a technique like that later tonight. Would I call this excellent? I'm not super motivated to get the next Tankobon volume yet, because each of these is, like, just sort of short stories, and I'm sort of like, well, how many funny short stories of this guy going to the grocery store can I get? You know, I don't see a lot of overarching plot behind it all. I'm sure there is one, but I haven't really encountered it. So we'll see if I continue with that. But I do like the artwork, and it is pretty funny. Let's see. Here's another fantastic book that is not brand new, but I only came across recently. Gein, you're in the chat. I sent you a copy of this. I haven't heard if you liked it or not. This is a crime comic, kind of like going up against a serial killer. But the difference is all the main characters are dogs. It's also drawn in a style sort of reminiscent of the Don Bluth animation era of Disney. And while these dogs can talk to each other, there's also something somewhat realistic about them. They don't have good memories. And, you know, dogs have good long-term memories. They know who we are, but they don't remember necessarily what happened yesterday or anything. And so they're all trying to figure out, like, you know, like where their owners have gone. And the main one just, like, can't forget how important her lady was to her. And she sort of suspects that her new owner maybe did something to her. And maybe that's why there's so many dogs at this one guy's house. And so they're just constantly trying to investigate into, like, locked rooms and under the porches and stuff to try to figure out what's going on. So it's bizarre, you know, it looks cartoony. It's pretty scary, though. It's pretty intense. And the central mystery is just amazing. It's really, really strong. Some good character arcs, because there's different personality types for the different dogs. This will be in my top 10 of the year. So will the Ed Gein book, but top 10 of the year, Stray Dogs. Really something unique. Totally unique. Really, really well done. One of the few superhero comics that I've been keeping up with over the last few years has been the Immortal Hulk. And this is the final issue of the Immortal Hulk. It was a 50-issue run by writer Al Ewing. Mostly the art by Joe Bennett. A few fill-ins and stuff like that. This wraps up the whole sort of thing, the whole mystery of why gamma-powered individuals, from the Hulk to his enemies like the Leader, why they can come back from the dead. Why they just do come back from the dead. So a little supernatural. Definitely deals with all sorts of unique body horror. And closes out some character arcs in a really positive way, both supporting characters and a little bit of dealing with Bruce Banner's alters, because he has a dissociative identity disorder. It used to be called multiple personalities, and it sort of talks about a lot of that. Pretty good. I'm not generally super into stuff like licensed comics that are based on an existing property. I don't follow a lot of Star Wars, but Marvel's definitely done a good job of putting some top tier talent on their books and doing everything they can to make it feel like it fits into this new modern continuity with shows like The Mandalorian and Bad Batch and the new movies like, everything like Rogue One, Solo, etc. There was this 5-issue miniseries called War of the Bounty Hunters, mostly following Boba Fett between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, trying to keep control of Han Solo. Lots of different crime lords going after frozen Han Solo, as well as the Empire and the Rebellion. What's really cool is Kira, Han Solo's old girlfriend from the movie Solo, from his origin, plays a major role in this and will play a major role in the comics moving forward. She runs a huge criminal organization called Crimson Dawn, and she's a fascinating character. So yeah, it was really cool. It was a fun issue. I don't read the regular ongoing Star Wars, and I was able to just read these, none of the tie-ins, and it made sense. Pretty good artwork, great story by Charles Soule. He's a great writer. So yeah, that was fun. What else we got? I always pick up a few back issues each week at my store. So this week, some of the fun ones I got was, this is somewhere around like a 7.0 rated Marvel team up with Spider-Man and Captain Britain. It's his first American appearance, Captain Britain's, in the comics. He was in some British Marvel Comics magazines, but that doesn't really take place in the main Marvel continuity. Co-created by Alan Moore, actually. And I like his original costume here. I've always thought it was pretty unique. Anyway, very fun issue. Very fun issue. A few years ago, Archie Comics decided to sort of try some different things with their properties, including doing some horror comics. I got the first issue of their Sabrina title. I'm like, this must be like, I guess, what inspired that Netflix show. It's really cool. Sabrina as like a witch with actual sort of ties to Satan and or at least, like demons and stuff like that. Yeah, really cool witchy stuff. Not jokey, but still very fun. We're almost done. Picked up a random issue of Uncanny X-Men. It was a good price. Cool thing about this, lots of firsts. Look at that title. We've seen Marvel riff on this many times. Welcome to the X-Men, Kitty Pryde. Hope you survive the experience. First time Wolverine got named as Logan. First time that was ever mentioned. Kitty Pryde joins the X-Men. Well, she'd been in the comics, but this is the first time she appears as Sprite. And then there's some... I think it's the first appearance of Vanguard from Alpha Flight, the Canadian superhero team. But it's also just, prime Chris Claremont writing, John Byrne drawing, Terry Austin inking, great X-Men stuff. So just fun and a good price. Last back issue I got was this random issue of Invincible Iron Man. Oh, this is where Vanguard first appeared. Excuse me, I was getting two things swapped up. Cover by John Byrne. This is from the 70s. What's unique about this? Written by Bill Mantlo, best known for creating Rocket Raccoon and writing books like ROM Space Knight and Micronauts. The artwork was by Carmine Infantino. Basically just thought of as like one of the major DC Comics players from the 60s and 70s into the 80s. Just cool to see Carmine Infantino draw Marvel characters. So that was really fun. And then the last thing I've been reading is, here's a little spoiler for something I'm working on for my next episode. I've been rereading the trades of Something is Killing the Children, an indie horror book by writer James Tynan and artist Werther Deladera. Colors by Miquel Muerto. This is sort of like... It follows this lady called Erica Slaughter who works for a secret organization. It's a little bit like Buffy and the Watchers, except her order is way more ruthless. They don't allow for any loose ends or for anybody to find out about the existence of monsters. Also, Erica is more of an underdog because no superpowers. She's really good at fighting, and she's been taught about different types of monsters, but she just goes around hunting down monsters. And in this one, it's all about a monster that only children can see. Adults just can't see it, so they'll just never believe. It eats children. So it's actually pretty scary because a lot of children go missing and get eaten, and that's dark. You don't usually see horror go that far. It's a good story. I'm loving this. I can't wait to review it. So expect that soon. So that's what I've been reading this week. Curious what you read this week. And let's get into some drawing now. I put on Twitter an option. Should I draw a Transformer or should I draw something from Ed Piskor's indie horror comic Red Room? Transformers just barely won, but I think what I'll do is next week, I want to do these weekly, next week I will draw something from Red Room. So I had sketched out a pose of Hot Rod, and then I light boxed it to get like some cleaner lines. I'm going to touch up those lines and then do some inking. And I've got him playing a guitar because about 2 weeks ago now, my fiance Chrissy and I went out to see some live music. We saw a band called the Cybertronic Spree. And if you haven't heard, the Cybertronic Spree dresses up in Transformers cosplay, like really elaborate cosplay, and they play covers of rock songs. Some from the Transformers movie, and some just, hits from mostly the 80s, but like a few other things too, 70s and stuff. It's pretty unique. It was a lot of fun. They put on a fantastic show. We had a great time. And the venue we went to was super careful about making sure everybody had their actual up-to-date vaccination card before you were allowed in. So I appreciated that. They did a really good job there. Got to be careful these days. Take a lot more steps than we used to. Let's see. Hot Rod rocking out. Exactly. So I'm going to, flesh this out a little, and I can't wait. Speaking of guitars, one fun thing I did this past week was I like to build Lego if I have a little bit of free time. And they have a new Fender Stratocaster Lego set. That was a very fun build because, it isn't very, what would I call it, symmetrical. So it was definitely a unique and fun and challenging build. I had a lot of fun doing that. That was something fun I did this week. So just trying to get some straight lines here. But so I'm basing it off of that. The Cybertronic Spree is the name of that band. And then I'm going to... I'll ink this in a little bit once I clean this up. And we'll take it from there and see how this comes out. When I was a kid, I was humongously into Transformers. That was my main thing when I was like, in 3rd and 4th grade. I don't think that's too old. But that's the truth. That was the thing that I was most passionate about, and it's what got me into comics. Because I saw a Transformers comic book, and I was like, oh, more Transformers stories. Great. And that led to me discovering other comic books after a while. So that was kind of cool. Chris and Chrissy, that's sweet. Yep. I'm Chris, and my fiance is Chrissy. So that is the truth. I love getting like random comic back issues these days, and some of that is because a store that I shop at, local store, does this really fun thing. I'll mention them in a sec by name. So they're called Atomic Comics in Tacoma, Washington, not too far from where I live, really. And on Tuesday nights, on their Facebook page, they do what's called a live claim sale. It's not the same as bidding on a comic like on eBay. What they'll do is they'll put out a comic book, like in front of you, talk a little bit about, the condition it's in, what makes it kind of a special, unique issue, and then they'll reveal a price. And when they reveal that price, whoever in the live room is the first to say claim, the book title, and the accurate price wins it. And yeah, so it's really, really fun. It's when you see them talking about a comic, you just sort of make up your mind, like, is that something I want to bid on or not? Like, what's that worth to me? At least this is how I do it. I try to come up with a price, and if it falls within that price, I try to be the first one to claim it. And so sometimes I get some really unique, cool books. And as you can see, I'm using like that sort of technique I was just mentioning, like a lot of manga does. I've also seen American comic book artist Daniel Warren Johnson use this to fantastic effect, where you just sort of, instead of like nothing but straight lines, you really do some scratchy lines within a certain range, and it sort of implies a type of vibration or short motion, something like that. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to convey here. Because I want him to be sort of like strumming that guitar, We'll see if I can accomplish my goal. Super grateful for everybody to be here. Let's see what's being asked in the chat room. Do you ever review really indie comics? Well, if you're talking like more like self-published stuff, I don't know if I've ever done an episode on like self-published. I've definitely done, smaller press, as in, first of all, I don't think, Boom or Scout or even Dynamite is that big. Some people call Image indie. I wouldn't go that far. But definitely stuff like Fantagraphics, Drawn and Quarterly. I've done stuff about like guys like that, and I would definitely call that indie. But when you say really indie, I assume you mean even smaller than that. And I haven't done anything like, a self-published comic. Well, no, you know what? I take that back. I did once, because I found one that I thought was quite bad. I was just trying to give an example of like what did not work, and that was Civilian Justice. If you ever want to see an episode where I just try to have a little bit of fun with a book that I thought was not executed well. I definitely get requests every single day to review somebody's self-published or crowdfunded comic, and it's pretty exhausting, because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but, how am I going to tell if that's something special that we can all learn from? It's so hard. Like, I could really create a pretty bad episode. Bone was mostly self-published originally. That's true. So I've covered Bone. I've covered Cerebus, which is technically self-published. So I have covered self-published stuff, but it's self-published stuff that, like, made an impact in the industry in some way, because we can learn from that beyond just what we can learn from the storytelling. There are others out there that I want to do that are on that level. ElfQuest. It's kind of a seminal self-published type of book that I'd really love to cover someday. So there's definitely more. Yeah. You met the artist of Civilian Justice in New York? He must be a character. Nothing against the guy for, like, I think I said this in the review, and if I for some reason didn't, I definitely meant it. It's an accomplishment to self-publish any book, so I'm impressed on that level. But we can still say, oh, here's why something was not lettered well, or, here's where storytelling falls apart, like it isn't using the proper rules. I bought Colonial Comics recently purely because Chris is in it. Oh, I was curious about his art. Really impressed with the windows and the ships. Thanks, Barry. That's so nice of you. I appreciate it. I hope that you found the book interesting. I definitely did. Boy, you know what was interesting is, as a kid, I didn't dislike history, but I also wasn't, like, enamored with history classes. But as an adult, when I can just choose the topics myself and study it, like, you know, read whatever book I want, all of a sudden I find history so much more fascinating when I elect to decide what part I'm going to cover. Some of that has been colonial America, actually. Some of it's also been World War II. And, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just interesting, like, how as a kid that didn't really interest me. And I don't feel like my tastes overly changed, but I did become way more interested in reading books about history as I grew up. The design I'm using here for Hot Rod really mimics the lead singer of Cybertronic Spree, in that it's based specifically more on the animated version of Hot Rod, which is, you know, all the Transformers were simplified a bit so that they could crank out that animation in a reasonable amount of time, compared to, you know, how detailed, say, the toys were or are. Because I've seen some Transformers toys now, and oh my god, they're so much more detailed than the things that I had as a kid. They're all posable beyond just being able to transform. Boy, kids today have access to some pretty amazing toys. But toys also just aren't as popular as they were when I was a kid. Toys were, like, really popular when I was a kid. And I think these days, you know, it's just the fact that online options and video game options are so much more prevalent than when I was growing up. So, yeah, it's very different. Very different. Since it's spooky season, do you have an EC comic story you read that really stuck with you? Yeah, I do, Penguin. And it would be from, I covered it in my episode about EC horror comics from a couple Halloweens back. It would be the one, and I forget the exact title right now, but basically a guy is stranded on a deserted island. I was about to say desert island. It's like, and it was no treat. And he and a rat are both, like, fighting for food or something like that. And he ends up putting, like, the rat in his mouth. No, wait. I'm trying to remember the order of it or something. It was like the rat ate a bird and was choking on it, and he tried to eat the rat and choked on it. And then he was, like, seeing a boat go by, and he tried to swim out, and a shark started choking on him, and then some, like, fishermen pull it up, and it's just like this series of animals that have all eaten each other. And I think it was by Johnny Craig, actually. I think it was. If you can get them on your other channel, any reason. Yeah, the reason I'm doing it on this channel, Clay, good question, since this is sort of the first of what I intend to be weekly. YouTube really does not like it when you do the occasional live stream on your channel, because it gets significantly less views than your regular content, and therefore, once they see, like, a video has gotten significantly less interest, they stop sharing your next regular video to people. So it can really, really hurt. It really hurts the algorithm. Whereas if I do this regularly here, yes, I'll get less viewers, at least initially. I definitely will get less viewers here. But it won't be hurting my other channel. The big advantage to doing it on my regular channel, people can, if they want, like, send a super chat or something. That's nice to get. But it isn't worth the drawback of having my videos not shared as much by YouTube to new people. I really want to grow my channel. So, yeah, there's other channels out there that do similar things. For instance, well, there's bigger channels that do it. Let me think of one. H3, if you've ever heard of H3, they have a podcast channel where they like show their live episodes, but then they divvy up their clips onto another channel or do like original shorter videos on that other channel. So things like that. So basically it's all just to protect myself from getting hurt against YouTube's weird algorithm policies. I love retro-styled packaging, although I prefer more articulated figures. Yeah, well, I think that now is definitely the era for all of that. So hopefully you're getting what you want. I am. I don't collect a lot of toys really. I do get a good amount of Hot Toys figures, if you know those. I get like about like one of every sort of main Marvel Cinematic Universe like hero or character. I usually get like about one of each of them. But and then I sometimes collect weird variations of Donatello only from Ninja Turtles. That's about it. That's about it. Modern toys seem space age compared to the 80s. Then I hit Walmart today and they were selling 80s He-Man repros. And I think that's yeah. Vintage, retro, nostalgia has always been a thing. It's just that like in the past, retro would refer more to either musical trends or fashion trends. And now it's a little easier to sort of like reproduce items from people's childhood. And, you know, once those people become adults and have disposable income, that's the kind of stuff they want. They want to recapture at least a little of their childhood. So, yeah. It is interesting seeing what becomes popular. I'm one of those 40-year-old dudes with too many Funko Pops. I don't know if I might have one or two Funko Pops that people have given me. I don't collect those. By the time I noticed that they were like popular, I was like, Jesus, if I get into this, I'll just go broke in a day because they just are constantly licensing things. It's amazing. I mean, I think I saw some Funko Pops that were based on cereal. I was like, wow, there's nothing they haven't licensed that at least that I can think of. Musicians, athletes, of course, movies and comics. I don't know how you ever define your collection if that's what you're into and like say like, no, I won't get that, but I will get this. Have you seen that super expensive Optimus Prime robot toy that can transform on its own? I did. There was a temptation to get that because I loved Transformers as a kid, but I also just sort of was like, that's so much money. Like if I was wealthy, independently wealthy, maybe that would be fun. If you can afford it, it's a cool thing. I get it. But yeah, too rich for my blood, basically. Too rich for my blood. I only collect shows from my childhood on sets. Yeah. Have you seen the Ashley Wood A3 figures? He did one on Batman, Spider-Man, and Iron Man. Haven't seen that. Not sure what that is. Yeah, they're saying the Optimus Prime is like $800. That's a lot to spend on a... But, you know what? I did spend that much on a a Lego set once. I got that Ultimate Collector's Series Millennium Falcon. I do like building Lego sometimes, and that was a lot, but I did it. So I'm definitely not one that can judge anyone else for what they've spent on their collection. Once I got that, I was like, yep, well, if I get this, I can never judge anyone else again, because that is a lot to spend on something that you definitely don't need. But I like it. I would say it brought me pleasure. Hello, A-Man. Thank you for joining the stream. My favorite Spider-Man artist is Sal Buscema. Is that strange? That's interesting. Does that mean that you were reading in the era that... who was the writer? Yeah, he was drawing Spectacular Spider-Man, Sal Buscema was, and I'm trying to remember the name of the writer because he wrote one of my favorite Spider-Man stories, Kraven's Last Hunt. And I'm sorry, folks. It's I'm thinking of the artists that were around him. Like, there was Roger Stern and David Michelinie. And all of a sudden, I'm completely blanking on the writer of Kraven's Last Hunt. I mean, obviously, I could Google it. But let's just keep drawing. Probably also one of you can figure out what I'm thinking of. One time I was in Japan... This is relevant to what's going on here. And I went to what's called Dr. Sketchy's, if you've ever heard of those, live drawing sessions. And when I was there, I met another American artist, professional comic book artist. I forget his full name off the top of my head, Andrew something or other. And he draws a bunch of Transformers comics. And he was, while we were getting ready for the show to start, he was sketching a commission of a Transformer. And I took time to talk to him. I was like, I love drawing. Drawing Transformers in general has sort of always intimidated me, just because when you draw a person, you can block out body shapes. They're like 7 heads tall, and you can bisect a head, nose in the middle, or eyes in the middle, and then nose between like the eyes and the chin, and mouth between that, and an arm is about like this long, and a leg is about that long, or a thigh, etc. But Transformer robots can often be very different proportions. They could be more like, say, a gorilla or something. And I'm like, how do you, block that out and get that right? And he was just like, sometimes you really need to have the reference of the toy. And yeah, it's more time consuming. It just is. And I was like, oh, okay. So there's no shortcut or something that I was missing. I think Transformers is easy. Okay. Oh, J.M. De Mateus. Thanks, folks. J.M. De Mateus was the writer that I was thinking of when Sal Buscema was the artist on Spectacular Spider-Man. They were a good team together. I liked a lot of those stories that they did. I couldn't honestly say that Sal Buscema was my favorite Spider-Man artist. Like, that would not be true for me personally. But I definitely respect him as an artist. He's more of like a journeyman or something, I guess I would say. As in, he had all the necessary talent to do good artwork. He just wasn't necessarily as exciting to me as certain other artists. Trace 3D models, get a ruler, and you're good. But yeah, but Jorge, I still couldn't, for instance, I might be able to memorize, say, a simplified version of Optimus Prime because I've seen him a million of times. But if you tell me, sit down and draw Wheeljack or Skylinks, I'd be like, sorry, I don't have the necessary like memory of how to draw, like for Skylinks, like a space shuttle or a bird monster based on a space shuttle. Like I would need to look at reference or have like a photo for every single shot. And if you're drawing one image, fine, no big deal. But you're drawing that panel after panel in a story that also has other characters with different designs. That just sounds so time consuming to me. It just sounds like a killer job. And trust me, I definitely respect people that can draw Transformers well. It looks cool when it's done well. EJ Sue is a great artist that often will do like covers and stuff for them. I think right now he's doing some covers of Godzilla Rivals. Good stuff. But man, just the idea of like drawing Transformers, like new ones and stuff, like, because there's going to be new ones that I've never even seen before, you know, that's intimidating to me. Journeyman, that's the word I was trying to think of. You're welcome. Isn't that what the artist for Judge Dredd does? I missed something. I'm not sure. Appreciate the questions, though, folks. That keeps things interesting. Oh, looks like I've got a visitor down here. Hey, Beansprout. Come here. Yeah? This is Chrissy and I's only kitty. When we met, she had 2 kitties and I had 2 kitties. But with old age, all that's left is her kitty here, Little Bean, but I usually call him Beansprout. And he's a good boy. He's our friend. He's our comrade. You want to say hi to the live stream, folks? He doesn't seem especially interested in doing that. Would you rather explore downstairs? Would you rather explore? No, not on the table. All right. How many of you all out there have pets? And does anybody have a pet other than a cat or a dog? That's always something I'm interested in. Technically, I mean, I guess I have other pets because I have a koi pond and I take good care of them. Got a lot of koi. I find them very relaxing. Kitty. You went over well, Little Bean. People like you. Thanks all. I always want to talk to Todd McFarlane. I managed to talk a few pros, but not Todd. What was he like? I mean, if you've seen my interview with him, that gives you a pretty good idea of what Todd McFarlane is like. I mean, I've also seen him speak a few times, and I'm sure a bunch of us can look up videos. He's an energetic guy. He's driven. He has his own ideas on what makes a successful comic or toy or product. And I wouldn't argue that any of his opinions are wrong, because he's obviously a very successful person. He's a really interesting guy. And I think that one thing I've definitely seen in successful people that they tend to share in common is believing in themselves, or at least not letting no's stop them, you know, moving past an objection. So I will say that, like, that Todd definitely has that going for him in a big way. It's impressive. Glad to see you're streaming again. I wish I could send you $5 like I normally do. I am hoping all is well with you and having this in the background while doing my grad school homework. Things are very well, Steve. I appreciate that. Don't expect anybody to donate, but if you want to, you can always, let's see, which way do I point? I think this way. But in the top corner of my stream here, there's a little written word of like where my Patreon is, and then also you can always do a one-time donation if you want to at Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/comic tropes. But not begging. If you want to, it helps, because like I say, I have just gone part-time at my day job. Going to try to make YouTube a real thing. In order for that to actually work, it does rely on the kindness of my viewers. Hopefully enough people are in a position where, you know, $1 or $2 doesn't make a big difference, and that adds up, and it does make a big difference to me. Anyway, just letting you know. Letting you know it's appreciated, not expected. Hope that difference is clear. But I think, you know, if you just look at me, hopefully you guys can tell I'm a lot healthier than I've been in the past. I've got good energy because of that. I've lost a lot of weight. So ever since I had COVID, I've been taking really good care of myself, eating very healthy, getting exercise, and it's made a big difference. Definitely feel a lot better. Yeah, you go through something like that where it was that bad, you know, you spend like a week in the hospital just struggling to breathe, and your, you know, blood pressure, like, or beats per minute drops to like the 30s, and, you know, you just like, no, I want to live. I made a decision, and that's a decision I just now make every time I'm hungry. Decision to choose something healthy. So anyway, yeah, doing really well. I wouldn't say I'm strict keto, Jorge, although I take advantage of a lot of keto things. It is important overall to me to have almost no sugar and very, very low carbs. So yes, that technically is keto, but I'm not trying to follow a keto diet, which can drive you nuts. Mine, I'm doing just to keep my blood sugar low. So what that means is sometimes at the end of the day, I can have a somewhat normal dinner. I can't quite do, like, say, Chinese food with the sauces that I used to love, but I might be allowed to have, like, a couple slices of pizza or a burrito. Generally, I stick these days to, you know, meats and vegetables. Really no sauces or anything like that. No snacks, no drinks other than water. No, certainly no fast food or anything like that. That's just off the menu. And it's not that big a deal. It really isn't. You get used to it fast. Instead of a sandwich, you know, I might have, like, for instance, at work the other day, it was really nice. They cooked hot dogs for us, just to be nice. I did not put mine in a bun or put ketchup on it, but I did have a hot dog, because the hot dog itself, not that big a deal to have. A friend of mine interviewed Neil Adams, asked what he was like, and he was told he was basically nuts. I've heard some interesting things about, like, people meeting him at a convention, so that sounds right, but I don't know. I haven't talked to him myself. Certainly he's accomplished a lot that I definitely respect, but sounds like a character. I ate too many potatoes. I miss potatoes. I don't have potatoes or fries or anything like that. Like, I don't have starches. You know, I don't have corn. I could probably get away with having a little bit of some of these things here and there. But whenever I can, I'm trying to make the choice to not have it because it's just easier, and yeah. Anyway, the important thing is I feel like I'm doing well. I feel like my health is good. Better than it's been in a long time. And I like having the energy that I have now. When I was originally doing comic tropes, when I first started, I was doing it weekly, which is what I want to get back to now. But the main way I was able to do it weekly back then was I would stay up until like 3 or 4 in the morning a couple nights a week just drinking Mountain Dew to stay awake. That's what I would do to get the episodes out consistently. And that was just so much sugar. That was what made me become diabetic. And it wasn't worth it. I sacrificed a lot of my health to get those episodes out weekly. And I didn't really know that I was, so it's not like it's a huge regret or anything. I was proud of what I was accomplishing. It was just that I was not doing well by myself at all. I was not doing well by myself at all. I come from a long line of family that does not believe in ketchup on a hot dog. Yeah, well, to be honest, like, that was an easy decision too, because if I'm being honest, I like ketchup on burgers. I don't do it anymore, but I do like ketchup. I like them on fries. But on a hot dog specifically, I always thought mustard was so much better. Not mustard and ketchup, just mustard. I could do other things, like chili, or what would you like, relish, or peppers and onions and stuff, although that's really more of a sausage type of thing. I never thought that ketchup complemented a hot dog that well. I never thought that was really a good match. I didn't think it was gross. I just didn't think it was anything special. So yeah, I've always been more, and mustard fortunately doesn't really have sugar or carbs in it, so I can definitely put a little mustard on my hot dog and enjoy it that way. So that's fun. So I can still have plenty of things that are like kind of fun sometimes, I can have things that taste good. I can still have certain alcohol. I really don't drink beer now, but I can have like clear alcohols, no problem really. And even wine actually isn't too bad. Anyway. I really like your Johnny the Homicidal Maniac vid you did 2 years back. That was the first comic I ever held when I was 4, because I got to snoop around my uncle's room, who got it from Hot Topic. Oh my goodness. Do you like ranch or blue cheese with your buffalo wings? Neither. I don't care for either of those dressings, actually. When I get a salad, like, generally I like, Italian or oil and vinegar, simple, certain vinaigrettes, very, very light on the on my salads, and I like salad. So that's another sort of fun one that I can still have, just won't have things like croutons in them, or even though I love tomatoes, I probably wouldn't really have one with tomatoes, or at least super light on tomatoes these days. So those are some of the choices that I'm making, and seems to be working out pretty well. Pretty good. Pretty good. No white stuff, my sister says. I've never been a fan of mayonnaise, and I also don't like sour cream, so, like, it just sort of became a thing in my family where it's like, Chris doesn't like white stuff. Kinda true. Would I ever do a creator-owned book? I sure hope so. I've been working on one since I got real sick. I've been sort of refocused on an idea. I've got a couple ideas, but the one I'm really working hard on right now on developing is a werewolf story. I like the idea of a werewolf. I don't think there's many good werewolf stories out there. The original Wolfman is okay, better for its special effects than anything else. A lot of people will say, like, An American Werewolf in London. I think that's a good looking movie with some great special effects. I think the story is pretty boring because the protagonist is very not proactive. He's not very proactive. Just a bunch of things happen to him. He doesn't, like, really do much to set out and solve or change his problems. So I don't really think that that's one of my favorites. The Howling's decent. It's a little cheesy, but I think The Howling's decent. My favorite werewolf story is Dog Soldiers by Neil Marshall. It's like kind of a smaller British horror movie that I think is pretty good. Anyway, I've got an idea for a werewolf story that I think is pretty good. And so we'll see. I'm working on that. I can't stand some of the things that are like, werewolves versus vampires, which the idea itself is fine in like, comics and role-playing games. But, movies like, Twilight and Underworld, just not my cup of tea, man. Just does not work for me, really. I've never found those executions interesting. Hope you're writing your ideas down. I am. So, excited for more Curb, yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay. Why do so many people dislike John Romita Jr.'s Superman? Sort of an interesting question. I like John Romita Jr.'s art a lot. With the one caveat that if he's rushing it, sometimes it can look a little more cartoony than I like, because he's certainly capable of amazing things. He's got a pretty unique style that I really, really admire. But he's like one of the few artists out there today. I don't know if he does now, but he has done like up to 2 monthly books at a time. Like there was a time he was doing, I think, both Spider-Man and Thor monthly. I may be remembering which one he worked on, wrong, but he definitely has done up to 2 monthly books, and I think the work does kind of suffer when he tries to do that much. It's because what he seems to be willing to do is give it as much detail as he can within the time that he's allotted, and yeah. I'm sorry to hear you got sick. I got really sick. Really, really bad. So frustrating. I was only something like 3 or 4 days away from being eligible for the vaccine. So that drove me nuts to be so close and all of a sudden realize I'd somehow gotten sick because I'd been so careful. Some of you may know that I've got a day job and I have to interact with the public for it, and some of them really push back hard against being asked to wear a mask, and it's like, dude, it doesn't even matter how I feel about it, honestly. Like, it's just A, it's the law where I am, and B, it's the store's policy. But boy, will they fight you on it. And it's like, man, I just have no authority to just let you do whatever you want. Will you please just not fight me on this? It's just such a waste of everybody's time. Yesterday, I had somebody come into the store I work at, and they weren't wearing masks. It was a husband, wife, and a little kid. Weren't wearing masks, and I've got a box of masks for people that forget. It happens. It does. That's okay. And I just started to pick it up as they walked in the door. They were only a couple steps in, and the husband goes, "Oh, no thanks," and the wife looks up and she goes, "What? Oh, no." And they just both turned around and walked out. They didn't say a word to me or anything. They just saw that I was getting the masks ready. I hadn't even said anything to them yet to offer it. They just, "Oh, no." That's okay, because you are probably the kind of person that's not vaccinated, and I'd really rather not be in close proximity to you. So, bet you didn't know that you would get some of my opinions on current events. You're so lucky. Hot takes. Hot takes. I do sell cars, yeah. And I do pretty well at it, actually. Never thought that that's something I'd be doing in life. But I do it, and I do pretty darn well. So, yeah. I've become good at it. I find it very draining sometimes, because I do consider myself an introvert. And in my job, you definitely have to do small talk with people, and you have to listen very closely to what's important to them, what they want and what they need. And that's fine. It's just that at the end of the day, that leaves me feeling very exhausted. And it's hard to explain that exhaustion because it definitely isn't a physical exhaustion, and it isn't the same kind of mental exhaustion as, like, say you had to study for, like, a 3-hour exam in college, or, write, a 12-page essay for high school or something like that. Like, that's a different kind of mental exhaustion. I just, like, if I have to talk to people all day long and just pay attention to their needs and stuff, I can do it, but I come home at the end of the day and I'm very, very wiped out. So that's another part of why comic tropes for a while sort of slowed down, and I couldn't quite keep up with doing it weekly. But I think I've got a new process, and I should be able to give you guys weekly episodes on my main channel. And I've also got some ideas for stuff to do on this channel beyond just live streams. I've got a couple ideas that I think will be really, really fun. So you folks are here, like, you're some of the early adopters, basically, to this second channel, and I think you're going to get to see some cool stuff. I really hope so, anyway. And am I in my basement? Technically, I guess you could call it a basement, but it's also, it's more like we've got a split-level house. But yeah, essentially this is the basement. And this room that I'm in is definitely the largest overall room in the house. I don't know how big it is, but it's pretty big. Like, I've got a treadmill over there. I've got, like, a lot of shelves along this far wall full of, like, Hot Toys and Legos. I've got, like, a dining room table down here, in case we ever, like, hosted a dinner. Like, we could set it up down here, but for right now I just have, like, really large Lego sets built on it. Over there is, like, like where I could play my video games and stuff. But I will say, while I love video games, I don't play a lot anymore because I try to use whatever free time I have to creating content for comic tropes. So the last game that I got was Cyberpunk 2077, and I haven't even gotten that far into it, just to be clear. Like, and that came out a while ago now. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll get to play some more. You're a bus driver, Barry? So's my father-in-law. Yeah, much respect. I understand you've got a lot of responsibility there. I'm sure that's tiring in its own way. Still dealing with COVID brain fog. Goblin, I did have that. I did have that brain fog. Now that I hadn't thought about this in a while, but after I got sick, for a month or two, I had that brain fog where it was very hard for me to remember certain things, and I'm like, am I getting senile? I knew that I was, like, thinking slower, and it was really frustrating for me. I didn't know exactly why. I was like, well, this is possibly related to COVID. All I can say is once I got my second vaccination shot, all of a sudden my energy went up and that brain fog cleared. And at first I'm like, well, is this just psychosomatic? But no, like, I know myself well enough at this age that, like, yes, I know I was having trouble thinking, and yeah, I figured out that, like, my thinking came back to normal after a certain amount of time. So don't know exactly how that's related, but I definitely believe that that's the case with me specifically. So I do think that it's possibly something you can recover from. I think. We'll see. Been a slice, y'all. Gotta go. This has been fun. Thanks, Nuyaka. Thanks for coming out. Came out about 10 months ago. Oh my goodness. I know that I have not made very much progress in it, because I remember all the ads had Keanu Reeves featured prominently, and I've, like, basically only recently come across him. So I'm like, oh, I'm probably towards the beginning of this story, or maybe, like, past the very first introductory sort of chapter, something along those lines. If my sister is still in chat, I just want to give her a shout out. This time of year, she always makes a really amazing, elaborate Halloween costume, and I wish I had her skills there because I would make really cool cosplay for my show. This year she's going as like a radiation exam, like, you know, like has like her skeleton, but it lights up. It looks really, really cool. She's done all sorts of cool things. Oh, that's too bad, Steve. I'm sorry. What Halloween costume you've worn that you really liked? I was Jack Skellington one year. That's interesting, Penguin. As a kid, one of the ones that I really liked that I did was what was it? As a real little kid, I was Winnie the Pooh, and I was a Smurf. I was a robot once, and I thought that was really cool. As an adult, I haven't done too many costumes, but when Harry Potter was first coming out and was kind of popular, I had a Slytherin outfit, you know, like a nice elaborate cloak and suit underneath and stuff. I thought that I looked pretty good in that. Hey, J-Muse, thanks so much for dropping in. I appreciate it. I didn't make this one. I bought it. Gein, you're dead to me. No. I didn't know that, but it looks great. It looks great. And I know you've made a lot of really cool costumes in the past. So I always respect what you do for Halloween. Love Halloween. I hope I get some good trick-or-treaters this year. The first year I moved into like this house was like 2 years ago, and we got so many trick-or-treaters. Fortunately, I had thought that it was a possibility, and I bought a lot of candy. We had just enough. Last year, you know, height of the pandemic, I'm going, are we going to get any trick-or-treaters? I'm like, I just don't know, because we got so many the first year, but we might not get any this year, and I just didn't know. So I got a bunch of candy. We got none. I just took it to work, gave it to coworkers. Fine, you know, still worked out fine, like in that regard. I again bought a bunch of candy this year just in case, because I think that kids should feel safe at this point trick-or-treating. I think so. So hopefully that is the case. I got a bunch of candy, and I got a cool sort of motion projected Halloween pumpkin that sort of just like moves and stuff that I'm projecting against the house so that like kids can know that like, yeah, we've got candy, you know, we're doing Halloween. I love Halloween. I think it's so much fun. Love that holiday. Would anyone out there say that Halloween is their holiday? And if not, what is your favorite holiday? It can be anything. I'm just curious. What's your favorite holiday? Halloween is the best holiday. You made a Doctor Who costume. Actually, I didn't make that. Chrissy made that. I do have a really cool 5th Doctor Halloween costume that my fiance gave me, that she made. And it's really good. Thanks for reminding me. I appreciate that, Jeannie. I love it. I am definitely a fan of Doctor Who. Gene says that I thought that maybe Christmas could have been your favorite, or even Thanksgiving, because I know you like, you know, having dinner with the fam and everything. That's interesting. So Halloween is your favorite. I'm not totally surprised, because you always do like a really good costume, and you've hosted some big parties and stuff. So I'm not totally surprised, but I wouldn't have necessarily guessed that, Jeannie. Hunter x Hunter is on Netflix? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's cool. 2, 3, 4. I'm a sucker for Christmas time. Sure, Halloween has the most personality. Yeah. Was Mobius as a kid and actually found Marvel licenses plastic teeth. Oh, you must mean Morbius. You must mean Morbius, the living vampire. It says Mobius, but I think you meant Morbius. Check out the video from the drawing board, Tom Foster, for a 3D to 2D comic workflow. Maybe. I'm not sure if that's something that would actually interest me specifically, but thanks for the recommendation. Oh, here's a question. Are any of you others out there YouTubers? Just curious. I can't be the only one. Dia de los Muertos is pretty cool. In Arizona, we used to make sugar skulls in Spanish class. Yeah. Halloween is my favorite. I felt being in a family of 10 kids. Halloween always brought us together. On top of that, I was supposed to be born on that day, but my twin sister decided otherwise. Oh, does that mean you were born, like, early or late or something? Christmas, because my family is able to gather together. I get that. Yeah, I definitely understand that. Especially as I get older. I appreciate that more and more. Oh, all right. See you later, Jorge. Some kid mistook me for Luke Cage on Halloween last year. I made his day by saying Sweet Christmas. Nice. That's a good response. That's pretty cool. I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but I don't really know if anyone would care what I have to say on anything. Or maybe it's too late, I'm too old. No, I think if you're passionate about something, there's always an audience on YouTube. That's what I've learned. Because there are some guys that do this that are younger than me, but I still have like a bigger audience than plenty of them. So I mean, it just sort of shows that like anyone can build an audience by, you know, putting out content that like is the best that they can do, that they're passionate about. I truly believe that. It's fun. It is work, but it's fun work. Hold on. A couple people in my family are texting me. I want to see if it's a coincidence or if everything's all right. Oh, okay, good. Two different things. My dad's just telling me the scores for the Red Sox game. I'm originally from Boston. And the other was not related. So everything is good. At this hour, where my whole family is on East Coast time, like if two people in the family are you know, messaging me at the same time, it just made me a little nervous. I'm like, oh my god, what's going on? But it's nothing. I rewatched your collaboration with Comic Pop yesterday. How was Sal to work with? I love both of your channels. Any potential for another video with him? Never say never. Sal was kind enough to invite me on for an interview. I had a really good time. You know, he asked me if I could come up with a topic, and I'm trying to remember. It was a while back that I did that. I want to say I came up with comic books that were like never finished, like famous comics that like started but were never finished. I think that was the topic I came up with. Yeah, I would definitely collaborate with him again. You know, he asked, hey, Chris, are you going to be at New York Comic Con this year? I have always gone every year. And I did have tickets. He's like, are you going to be there? Like, let's meet up. And so he was kind enough to sort of reach out in that regard, which is very nice. Ultimately, Chrissy and I made a last-minute decision, really more me making the decision, that I just didn't feel like I felt 100% comfortable going to such a big convention right now. Like, you know what? I probably would have if it was in my backyard. Like, that would have been the difference. I just didn't love the idea of flying across the country to deal with that right now. I did miss it a lot. I've always gone to the New York one, and it's become a really massive convention. It's also an excuse for me to see my best friend from college who lives in New York. We always go to it together, but we also just, hang out for a few days. And as you get older, like, having those kind of close friends becomes more and more important. So it really did hurt not to go this year. I just ultimately didn't go. And so I didn't get to meet up with Sal. But I would say that, like, there's every chance in the world that we could do something together again. I'm up for it. I don't really have a good idea. So I'm not the kind of guy to, like, force things. But there's a bunch of people I would love to collaborate with. I would be happy to collaborate with him again if there was a good idea. I used to have Godzilla Mendoza on my channel a bunch as, like, Spider-Man, and one time as Moon Knight. He was really kind to do that. I would love to collaborate with him again. Any of the folks really that were involved in the at-home Comic-Con. Matt Draper, Owen, Comic Drake. I really respect all those guys. We talk, all of us, at least a little bit online, or joke around a little bit. I don't know that, we could realistically say that any of us are truly friends, but I think that there's definitely a healthy respect with a bunch of other comic book YouTubers. Not every single one, but like a bunch. And that the idea of, like, collaborating would be a blast. So who knows? Still streaming, I definitely am. What horror movies have I watched this October? I've watched a bunch, James. Let me think. I watched the original Omen, which I guess I'd never seen. I thought that I had, but then I watched it and I was like, oh, I'd never seen this one. That was decent. Not great, but decent. Good performances by, like, Gregory Peck helped it. What else? I watched a couple of the Hammer horror movies, their Dracula series with Christopher Lee. That first one, Horror of Dracula, is especially good. Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. Really, really fun movie. In terms of new movies, I went and saw Lamb, which I think you could technically classify as horror. It's not super overt. Lamb is an Icelandic movie. Oh boy, how to describe it? It's weird. It is weird. It's good. I'll just leave it at that. It's good. I saw, from France, I saw the horror movie in theaters, Titane. It's basically about a serial killer lady that, like, sort of goes on the run and fakes that she is the son of a firefighter captain. Like, he'd been missing his son, and she, like, fakes that, like, she's his son, and starts to become less of a crazy serial killer. Also, she's pregnant with the baby of a car that she had sex with. So that's a weird one. But so is Lamb. And I saw Halloween Kills. It's actually not getting great reviews. I thought it was actually pretty good. I liked Halloween Kills. What else have I watched? I've rewatched a few things. Army of Darkness. I guess that's technically horror. What else have I seen? Boy, I've seen some other things, but it's not all coming to me now. Yeah, I always try to watch a little extra horror during this time of year. I love horror movies. Comic Drake crossover, yes. We'll see. Saw your recent Sam Keith episode. I found it interesting how many times he wrote a story from a female perspective as someone who is a man. Me too. But there's definitely been plenty of creators who become known for that and just start to become more comfortable writing from a slightly different perspective than their own, and that's valid. For me, it was a little hit and miss. I did like the Max. I liked Four Women okay. I didn't love Zero Girl or My Inner Bimbo. I didn't really think either of those were anything I could really connect with too well. Malignant. Oh yeah, I saw Malignant. I liked that one. That was crazy. Are you gonna rewatch Ghostbusters for Ghostbusters Afterlife? Not necessarily, just because I've seen Ghostbusters more than almost any other movie. I could almost recite that one. I love it. I'll see Afterlife. I don't have high hopes, but maybe it'll surprise me. You never know. That would be nice if it did. Maybe that's my trick to enjoying certain things, just trying to go in with lowered expectations. The key to happiness. Hello, Sigamegs. Thanks for jumping in. Transformers, more than meets the eye. That's all I can do, otherwise the algorithm will punish me. Favorite Halloween monster? We'll just say like monsters in general, I guess, count as a Halloween monster. Let's see, we've got like, it's not going to be Mummy. Zombies are in the running. Werewolf, I already talked about how much I like the idea of a werewolf. Maybe one day I'll be the one to make werewolves popular the way Kirkman made zombies popular again. There's a lot of good vampires out there. There really are. Vampires probably have the best luck in getting adapted into other mediums. Does that make them my favorite, though? Questions. Important questions that we all need answers for. Don't know. It might be vampires. I think that vampires have the highest rate of like good stories from, you know, there's good adaptations of Dracula from like, you know, the original Universal one to Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula to the Hammer horror movie starring Christopher Lee. Those are all really solid versions of Dracula. Frankenstein is interesting, but I don't think he's got tons of good movies. I think I gotta say in general vampires, because I also like stuff like, you know, I don't know, Fright Night and Lost Boys, and maybe even the first 2 or 3 seasons of True Blood. Let the Right One In is a cool vampire story. The best horror monster is man. Yeah. I'm surprised no one's made a Wendigo or Skinwalker movie yet. Well, Antlers. Antlers comes out this week. That's a Wendigo movie. That thing looks awesome. I hope it's awesome. Could be bad. So far, it looks pretty cool. Fingers crossed. Yeah, Antlers. Antlers looks really badass. But you're right. The Wendigo tale hasn't been adapted a lot. Not every... And if all you know of Wendigo is, say, the weird sort of white furry monster out of like Hulk comics and X-Men comics, that's not really a great adaptation of what the Wendigo is. Which is more of like, you know, something like a a ghoul or a zombie or something, but more powerful. From Dusk to Dawn, great vampires in that movie. Yeah, those were good vampires. You're right. I agree. Yeah, I would say that like vampires have had the best luck in terms of getting adapted into new stories over the years. Maybe it's because so many cultures have a variation of like vampires, but ghosts also, now that I think of it, there's lots of different cool ghost things. There's lots of good stories with ghosts. Ghosts can take all sorts of interesting forms, including stuff like, The Ring or The Grudge. Like, those are ghost stories. The Shining is basically a ghost story. The Shining is great. The Exorcist is more possession. That's sort of demons. That would be like stuff like, like Paranormal Activity and stuff would fall into that same sort of genre. There's witches, like Blair Witch Project and things like that. Witches are probably kind of underserved. There could be more scary witch stories out there. Skeletons aren't as scary as they used to be. Skeletons aren't super scary, are they? They like a zombie or a ghoul is scary, but like just a skeleton, you sort of feel like, nah, I could push that over. That's not so bad. What else? There was a Wendigo movie about the Donner Party about 10 years ago. Oh, never came across that one. That's interesting. Yeah, there's plant movies. Little Shop of Horrors and The Ruins and I don't know what else. There's killer plants. What else is like a good monster? Like that has been adapted in lots of different ways. I gotta think about that. Have you ever watched Afflicted or Overlord? Overlord I have, and that's a badass movie. Overlord is great. I mean, it starts off so great with that like intense paratrooper mission during like bombing. That thing was like something right out of How Intense the opening scene in Saving Private Ryan was. But instead of like storming the beaches, it was doing an airdrop during anti-aircraft fire. That was cool. That was badass. That was a good movie. I gotta rewatch that one actually. Yeah, I gotta rewatch that. Aliens, true. Yeah, The Happening is technically like a Killer Plants type movie, isn't it? You're right. That's not a good example though. Lots of good movies about aliens, including Alien or Predator. Predator is sort of an action movie, but sort of a horror movie, so sort of like a cool in-between thing. But the original Alien, that's just straight horror. That's really good too. Appreciate y'all being here with me, especially as it gets later into the evening. I'm having a great time. I think I'm going to be able to finish inking this little sketch of Hot Rod playing the guitar, and so that makes me feel good. What are you gonna use, Chris? Skeleton power? Oh, what are you gonna use, Chris? Skeleton power? That's not a great Chief Wiggum. I've never tried before. Succubus horror movies like Jennifer's Body. I've heard Jennifer's Body is actually pretty good, but I've never seen it. Maybe I think it's free on one of the streaming services I have, so maybe I'll watch that. Also a big fan of giant monsters. Of course, Godzilla, like towards the front of there. Not all of those really count as horror, but some of them definitely do. The most recent one, Shin Godzilla, is definitely horror. The original is horror, and I think it works well. Cloverfield was like an American take on that. That was horror. There's been plenty of others. Giant monsters, animals, just animals in general can be like, they've done like, sharks and grizzly bears and stuff like that, crocodiles and alligators. That one from last year, Crawl, wasn't too bad. It was a good premise. It was a really solid premise of like, a lowland area flooding because of a hurricane. So it was evacuated, but like a couple people were still in town, and so the alligators from like the nearby swamps, like, yeah, of course they would be there, and of course they'd be sort of confused and a little dangerous. I thought that was actually a pretty cool idea for a movie. Just cleaning up some of the original pencil markings here so that I can sort of see what I'm working with. I've been sort of putting off dealing with the last few bits of the head because I'm not 100% sure where to place Hot Rod's eyes, but I guess I got to decide that. So I'm going to grab my pencil again and just sort of figure that out, like exactly where I'm placing his eyes. Cloverfield was awesome. I wish Abrams didn't go haul into the box of mystery. Yeah, I sort of know what you mean. Oh yeah, isn't there a new VHS movie this year? I think that there's a new VHS and a new Paranormal Activity. I would watch those. I'll watch like anything that's a series. Basically, I will watch. I'm a sucker for that stuff. Saw and I don't know. I guess I haven't really watched all the Hellraiser or Leprechauns. I've watched like the originals there, but like I've heard that some of them aren't that great. There. I think that's about where I should put them. Okay. Some people have megalophobia, fear of large objects. Oh, That's a real fear, huh? Just fear of large objects? I didn't know that. But the mind is an interesting thing. It can work differently for all of us, so yeah. Closing in on the final details of Hot Rod shredding. Fear of holes, usually on the skin, like honeycombs, is the worst. Yeah, what's that called? Something like tryptophobia or something like that. That does get to me a little, like not a lot. I can control it and stuff, but lots of little holes does sort of freak me out a little bit. I can remember as a kid I didn't like how they looked. I grew up along the beach. I grew up on a coastal town, and I feel bad for this now a little bit, but like we would go to the beach, and during low tide sometimes you'd see a bunch of barnacles on the rocks. And I didn't like how all those little holes looked. So I would like take a smaller rock and I would just sort of spend my time crushing them. I didn't realize as a little kid, in my defense, that those were living things. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I like just thought that they were part of the rock that I didn't like, and if I sort of smashed them, it sort of got rid of the hole. And so like that was something I actually did as a kid, and I feel a little bad about it because it's like, you know, I just didn't know that it was a living thing that I was doing that to. I was really young. So I totally respect, though, that, like, some people do not like how lots of little holes look, because I get that. Like, I used to have that sort of aversion when I was very young. Yeah, my sister's mentioning those seed pod things. We had those too, like in our town, and our mom like would even collect some of those for like making in like her custom wreaths and stuff. Like there were those big sort of flowers that have like sort of a hard-ish top, like it's brittle, but it's like a hard top, and there's like these holes like all next to each other that like little pods are in. Ugh, not visually appealing. Yuck. They got revenge when you tore up your foot on the barnacles. Yeah. There was one time I was, how do I describe this story? Like, my sister's referring to a specific thing. So, we had a couple beaches. As I say, I grew up in a coastal town. One of our beaches, at the beach itself, had a really large rock. And to the side of it, a relatively smaller rock, but it was still like the size of like several cars, you know, stacked on top of each other, and it had a natural sort of slide, and at the right tide level that got wet, you could sort of climb up along a ridge along the big rock and jump across like about, you know, a gap like that or something like that, you know, like I don't know, maybe like 4 feet or something. You could jump from the big rock to the smaller rock, and you could go down the smaller rock almost like a water slide. It was really fun. It was like we all did it, and it was great. But one time when I was doing it, like, you know, there'd be waves, of course, and the waves were like just sort of smashing between these two things. I timed my jump badly, got hit by the water, and fell between these two rocks and got my foot sort of caught temporarily between like the two rocks, like at a point where they intersected, and they were covered in barnacles on top of that. And I was sort of stuck under there for a second or two. It felt like a long time, but I was stuck in like the waves are sort of washing over me. I thought I was going to drown, but I was able to like just sort of like rip my foot out like by sheer brute force. And it's pretty darn bloody. It was messy. So yeah, the barnacles got their revenge on me. They just bided their time, and one day they came in and got me. Would you rather go up against a pint-sized monster or a monster as tall as a tree? Well, I'll take the pint-sized monster. Is there some advantage that I'm missing here? Is like the monster as big as a tree a kind monster or something? It's one of those rarely seen sweet monsters. What song is Hot Rod playing? Ooh, I'm going to say that he is playing... Let me think for a minute. It's a good song for Hot Rod to be playing. He's going to be playing... Instruments of Destruction, which is a song from the Transformers movie soundtrack. Is that nerdy enough? Instruments of Destruction. Oh, I miss traveling, folks. Isn't it like just so rough, like just doing the same thing all the time, but it's just not safe to go anywhere yet? I specifically miss Japan. Boy, would I really love to go back there right now. Technically you can, but it's a 10-day quarantine if you're vaccinated, which I am, and 10 days is forever. Like, who has time to give up 10 days and then they can do a vacation? Like, nobody has that kind of time. Only really, really rich people who don't need to worry about anything. Some of you guys are really funny. Went camping in the summer. That was really fun. That's awesome. That's a perfect idea for this time. Who are the best writers Marvel has? I assume, Sergio, you're talking about right now. In which case, let me think. Well, Jonathan Hickman is writing for them right now, and I would call him one of the best. Don't know that he's currently producing his best ever work, but I would say that he's one of the best that they have. Charles Soule I'd put up there. Who else is really good? Al Ewing. Al Ewing just wrapped up Immortal Hulk. I think he did some really great things there. Trying to think of who else is writing there right now. And see, I don't keep up with all of the superhero books, so I'll need somebody else to jump in and mention some of the other writers that are working there. I can only sort of mention the titles that have caught my eye lately. You know what superhero book I want to read that I didn't read yet is the original run on Ms. Marvel. I'm talking about, the Kamala Khan character. I've read her as like a supporting character here and there, and I feel like she's really fun. Like, she's got a good, nerdy but endearing personality. Somewhat unique powers that aren't like, done to death. So I'd like to read that original run of her comic. I think that's one I'd enjoy checking out and learning about. Are you planning to have kids? I'm too old, man. I'm too old to have kids. I would say don't rule out the idea that I would ever, adopt or foster. Like, I would say that that's a smaller possibility, but I'm too old to have kids. Because if I had them now, by the time they're graduating high school, like, I'd just be like an old man, and kids get teased for anything. Like, the last thing I want to do is, give a kid, a reason to get teased. Does that make sense? I'm just too old. If I was a millionaire, it might not matter, but otherwise, what kind of a life could I give the kid? Chip is really... Oh, yeah, Chip Zdarsky. People just mentioned that. Favorite Japanese monster. You know which one I like that should really be like a Ninja Turtles villain is a Kappa. The ones that sort of look like a turtle, and they sort there's so many myths across different cultures of a monster that hides, in the pond, in the lake, or the river, and just is there to pull little kids down in. A Kappa is sort of like that. I think that they should make a super villain, supernatural Kappa that the turtles have as a recurring enemy. I think that would be interesting. So if IDW ever wants me to write a Ninja Turtles comic, that's what I would come up with, as a Kappa. Folks, I think I'm just about done. I'm gonna probably put in a few more little details here and there, but basically I think I've got this where I want it to be for the night. We've talked about the comics that I've read this week. If you watch this from the beginning, I talk about the weekly comics that I did. Took some interesting questions. Very grateful to everyone out there for stuff like that. All I was really trying to accomplish tonight for the first time was trying to sort of use this sketchy version to show like some motion on something, because I'm trying to show that he's what would you call it, like shredding, that he's playing like his pick really, really hard. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so that you can see that a little bit better. Bear with me. So maybe you can see it a little better there. And then I was just sort of having fun playing with some shadows and stuff, trying to spot some blacks. I feel like if you could add some color to this and like an interesting detailed background, you know, like put like, you know, a drummer here and some like stage lights up here. So this is black, but it's like shining down, like some, you know, interesting lights. Like, boy, this is where I don't have the same talent, but you know, Hot Rod has some simple, good primary colors, some oranges and reds, maybe a little yellow, okay? But then if you had some like cool colored lights, you know, some purples or blues shining down, I think that would be an interesting thing to look at. I would love to see somebody take a crack at something like that, see what it would look like. Cool. Any other questions before I wrap up the live stream? Love that Kappa idea. Kappa bunga. Yeah. Will I be doing these live streams on Mondays? That is my current plan, Gein. My current plan is to do this weekly, 5 o'clock on Mondays. I'll start by recapping the books that I read that week, and then I'll draw something and take questions from all of you. Hopefully this kind of grows, and more people that follow the Comic Tropes channel or my social media will start checking out, just so that we can get some discussion going, not just you guys asking me stuff, but maybe even like, you know, talking amongst yourself and learning about new stuff. Is this in YouTube or just Patreon? This what I'm doing right now is available to anyone, just to be clear. This is available to anyone. I got to attend a late night meeting, but thanks for the live stream. Always a pleasure. Thanks for dropping by, James. Super appreciate it. Appreciate everybody that's come in today. That's been they pull your soul out of your butt. Don't forget that. Yeah, if I did the Kappa for Ninja Turtles, there'd probably be a few concessions I'd make to the mythology, and just sort of say like, well, that was the mythology, but this is the real Kappa, something like that. But like, I just think a demon-looking turtle with a weird bowl for a head would be sort of interesting for them to fight. Maybe make him bigger or something. Can you tell us, if you haven't already told it yet, how Harry Partridge animated your intro? Pretty simple. I paid him. I paid him more than what he asked for. That's how it happened. I waited as well because I wanted to do that forever. I really respect Harry. Harry's actually one of the people that like started supporting my channel pretty early on. He made some comments. He reached out to me. He became a Patreon supporter. So we were in touch, and I let him know, you know, hey, when you have the availability, I'm willing to pay you whatever your rate is for a short animated opening. I have an idea. And eventually one day I lucked out, and he was like, I think I've got like a window in my schedule where I'd be up for some paying work. You know, what about this? And I'm like, well, what about if I do a little bit more than that? You know, and I gave him some storyboards that I made, real like close to stick figure level stuff. You know, not even as detailed as like, you know, the stuff I'm doing here, but you know, enough to get the ideas across. And you know, which was as simple as basically like me sort of coming into being in animated form from nothing, almost like a drawing becoming animated, and then just sort of running across a generic landscape where there's a bunch of different comic book related characters, jumping forward as though I'm jumping out of what's revealed to pull back a comic book. You've seen my intro probably, so hopefully you understand what I'm describing. And then what was really fun was once it started going, You know, Harry had some really fun ideas for what kind of characters could be in the background, and I had some ideas, and we just had a lot of fun. If you watch it slowly, there are a ton of little characters that go by. One of my favorites is so small in the background, but he created a character that's basically like, what if Rob Liefeld had designed an original character that's jumping in the background? You know, he's sort of got Wolverine hair, he's got 2 guns, he's got like shoulder pads, and I think like a ponytail or something, and braids. I don't know. It was really fun. Who is the most important superhero in the industry? Superman. It's just Superman. Yeah, good questions, folks. Appreciate it. I think this is as good a time as any to wrap it up, because it looks like we're coming up on basically a 2-hour window. So this was a 2-hour live stream. I did like about 30 minutes of reviewing comic and about like an hour and a half of drawing and taking some questions from you. Hope you enjoyed my take on Hot Rod playing a guitar based on the band the Cybertronic Spree. Look them up on YouTube sometime if you haven't heard of them yet. Cybertronic Spree. They're really, really fun. They're really cool. That was a great show, and I was inspired to do this. Next week, coming back, it's going to be just before Halloween. I wanted to do something scary, so what I'm pretty sure I'm going to do is something based on the comic book Red Room, which is a horror comic by Ed Piskor, one half of the hosts of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. Definitely check them out if you want to see more comic book analysis, one done by 2 professionals. So a little bit of a different take than what I do. Anyway, thank you all for being with me. I look forward to doing this as a weekly series. Hopefully it grows and people like it. Thank you for helping me out on the first one. Till I see you next time, I want you to keep reading comics. Take care.